Welcome back, folks. Chris in Central Pennsylvania. Roelf Meyer is now South Africa's ambassador resident in Washington, D.C., having presented his credentials to President Donald Trump on Thursday, May 21st, 2026, just days after arriving. Roelf is now the ambassador. Does this change the diplomatic situation between the United States and South Africa? After all, the previous ambassador was sent home unwelcome for his race-baiting comments about the United States and about Donald Trump. Ibrahim Rasool famously sent persona non grata back to South Africa, where he received a hero's welcome by racists at the airport. So what happens now? South African media, Democratic think tanks in America, and the press here all seem to think that this will change the trajectory of South Africa-U.S. diplomatic relations. And once again, this is foolhardy and juvenile analysis by people who simply want to walk down a primrose path of delusion, or they are lying to the public. Ladies and gentlemen, as I've told you, the dispute between the United States and South Africa has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It predates him by 2.5 decades. This problem goes back to the Article 98 waiver that South Africa refused to sign to protect our service members from fraudulent, frivolous International Court of Justice allegations. They refused to sign Article 98 waiver, and that started us down this path of South Africa abusing the United States. 75% tariffs on our poultry to keep our products out of South Africa because you're uncompetitive poultry market. Tariffs and quotas, particularly for automobiles and other products, industrial products. Meanwhile, Chinese products flood South Africa's market. In addition to this, South Africa's 145 race-based laws, which are meant to enrich a small number of connected elites at the expense of all South Africans, black, white, and brown, while demonizing white South Africans with fraudulent racist topics like white monopoly capital, funded by Bell Pottinger in association with South African politicians who intentionally seek to poison the environment and turn black South Africans against white South Africans. That isn't changing. The presence of Roelf Meyer in Washington, D.C. will not move that needle 1 millimeter. Now, he may get along very well with all the leftist hate wankers that populate the think tanks and the halls of Congress and the K Street lobbying groups and be feted and dined and be the toast of Washington, D.C. But as long as Donald Trump is in the White House, we don't have a fool sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue who will fall for the nonsense. South Africa must make substantive changes. It must make genuine concessions to its abusive behavior towards the United States and our people. Now, strangely, the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act has been renewed until December 31st of this year, and the President just issued a proclamation on it this week. And South Africa remains in the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, even though it's not eligible. So the United States has taken the steps to normalize relations by not sanctioning South Africa's politicians, by not making big news out of the 5 civil lawsuits that Cyril Ramaphosa and MTM and Mkhize Jonas are embroiled in, not even mentioning it. Not making hay of the fact that their foreign minister called Donald Trump a white supremacist in a CNN documentary on the eve of the G20. Not mentioning that Cyril Ramaphosa has repeatedly mocked President Trump and insulted him. The United States has put no focus on that. The United States has also not filed any grievances with international organizations over the violation of the Vienna Conventions and the raid on Woodmead and doxing of our diplomatic official and putting his life and his identity in jeopardy. They've made no effort to embarrass South Africa over that. And now, an ineligible South Africa, which is not eligible for AGOA, the fact that South Africa is involved in AGOA is fraud. South Africa does not respect private property rights as experienced by the passing of the Expropriation Without Compensation Act. Roelf Meyer can't change that. South Africa's government must abandon its unconstitutional, lawless abandonment of rule of law with things like NHI, the Employment Equity Act Amendment, Basic Education Laws Amendment, and expropriation without compensation. Until these things disappear, there will be no improvement. There might be some tepid improvement if they give concessions and not allow or force American companies to play the racist game of giving their equity to somebody who doesn't deserve it based on their skin pigmentation. That might make a small change. But the arrival of Roelf Meyer in D.C. is not going to change things, except at the coffee table and the country club circuit. But substantive change with the members of the National Security Council, with the White House staff, that is not going to change. With the president, that will not change. On top of this, there are groups who have close relationships and members of Congress, particularly the House and Senate, well, especially in the House, close relationships with members of our government that will stand up and defend the truth. And many of them also recognize Roelf Meyer, the Pariah Roelf Meyer, for what he is. He and Cyril Ramaphosa betrayed South Africans with their pseudo-democracy that put party over people and gave everything away to the communists. That's how many South Africans view Roelf Meyer, not just white South Africans, and certainly not just off our Congress. But the reality is this. People in the press, think tanks, keep pretending this will change things. The problem is not a nice guy to shake hands with and have a scotch at the Republican Club in D.C. The problem is South Africa's policies. Its racist policies, its failed macroeconomic policies, its stupid governance, and its lack of delivery. Not to mention its abusive conduct towards the United States and its nasty friends like Cuba, Iran, Russia, Communist China. This is not a good look. Until these things change, the relationship with the United States will not improve until another idiot from the Democratic Party goes into the White House. And then they can change. But before then, nothing will change. Welcome to Washington, Roelf Meyer. Enjoy your time there, the golf course, the country clubs, the coffee circuit, the diplomatic events. You'll be welcome, and you'll be getting praise heaped upon you for your role in transforming South Africa from a racist apartheid state into a racist black majority state. What say you, South Africa, Mzansi? Cheers.